So welcome to part 2 of the Bone Idle and Workshie Railway Workshie Station End update. I desperately wanted to have a ferry on the layout, and the only place I could squeeze it in was right here by the door, right on top of Workshie Station, which is fine. Just have to imagine that this particular piece of track is much longer and the ferry would be out here somewhere, but I still need to open and shut the door. Now, using a standard ferry terminal caused me all kinds of problems. First of all, this little joker here, the actuating derrick, no relation, who was lovely, but walking in through the door, it's very easy to catch your arm on the end of it, and I snapped about 3 of these, and in the end I basically used to have the terminal without the thing on. By the way, the canopy for the one side, I've got it somewhere, but I've taken it off to do measurements and things, and I've put it down somewhere, and I'm damned if I can find it. Anyway, so what do? You've got to have basically a maximum of a quarter straight and a half straight before you can actually fit the ferry to it. The problem with that is, if I can just get the ferry boat now from over here, when the thing is actually docked, tiddly 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 pom, like so, and that of course should be underneath the derrick and hooked up like so. You can see the problem. It hangs off the end of the layout. It's at a ridiculous angle, and basically you really then can't shut the door. So this desperately needed a rethink, a fairly major rethink. So part 1 of the rethink was this 1/4 inch gap that you can see where the track fits to the ferry. Now this is because obviously the ferry is would sit normally flat on your layout or your carpet or whatever you're playing this thing with, so the track has to be lifted up to actually meet the ferry, which is grand, but that 1/4 inch means that it also lifts up the rest of your layout, and it basically just isn't very nice. So the answer to that is to cut a recess in the corner of the layout so as everything will sit flat upon the floor. So there's the recess there. The sort of raised section is basically to make sure that the ferry actually sits nice and square in the docking section. And here now is the completed design. Obviously, if you're 3D printing these things yourself, you can add all the embellishments you like. And I basically decided that I needed to make it a little more interesting. You'll note now that the dock actually ends at the end of a 1/4 straight, which means the whole thing now fits much further onto the layout. And it also means that the derrick is a lot more inboard as well, so you don't tend to keep snapping the flaming thing off. The little packing pieces you can see underneath there are really just to get the thing to sit square. When it's on the layout, you'll see that the ends of the dock here actually fit down into that recess on the layout. And here now is the whole thing in situ. Just notice there 2 extra holes. I've put those in there so I can actually screw the things in place with a couple of screws and permanently fix it to the layout. So I'll just put the shelter back. There we are. And there is your modified dock. With that pesky derrick well out the way and much further on to the actual layout. And now if I just bring over the ferry and bring it in to dock like so, these will move a bit but obviously they'll be screwed down, and you can see a much better representation. And okay, I still can't close the door, but at least now it sits nice and square and frankly looks the part. So there we are, the Workshie Ferry Terminal, extensively remodelled on a 3D printer. You might want to consider buying a 3D printer, making some of these yourself, because it'll probably work out cheaper than trying to find a ferry dock for sale on eBay. As ever, chaps and chapesses, thank you for your time and your interest. And if you're at the TCS shows in Leicester next year, later this year, I will doubtless see you there.